Hello everyone, my name is Natasha, and I just wanted to talk about Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Now, I read this a while ago, and it's one of my favorite books ever, and there's so many quotes from this novel that I just can't forget, and it lives with me in my everyday life. So, yeah, let's get into it. I don't think Jane Eyre needs an introduction. I believe most readers know about this book. It's by Charlotte Bronte, like I said. She's one of the most prominent Bronte sisters, and she's just a brilliant writer. And you can really see her talent the most here in this book. I've read The Professor before, also by Charlotte Bronte, but I found that it fell a little flat. Um, I think she also has another book called Shirley. I can't tell if that was by Anne Bronte or Charlotte Bronte, but yeah, I'm pretty sure she published other books besides this one. Now, if you're not familiar with Jane Eyre, it's basically a coming of age story, a Bildungsroman, um, about, well, Jane, and we kind of get to witness her growing up from a little girl. She was an orphan into a confident, well, maybe not confident, into a grown woman. Okay, so later on, she becomes a governess, and as a governess, that's how she meets her love interest, Mr. Rochester. Now, I don't really want to talk about um, the book as much as I want to talk about specific quotes that I really like from this novel. So let's start with the first one. All right, the first quote that I really like is it's basically about how Jane, as a woman, feels like she isn't satisfied by the restraint that is forced upon women, and sort of like I think she just was very unsatisfied with the box that she had been forced into, not just as a governess, but also as a woman in general. And so she said about this, it is in vain to say that human beings ought to be satisfied with tranquility. They must have action, and they will make it if they cannot find it. Millions are condemned to a stiller doom than mine, and millions are in silent revolt against their lot. Nobody knows how many rebellions, besides political rebellions, ferment in the masses of life which people earth. Women are supposed to be very calm generally, but women feel just as men feel. They need exercise for their faculties and a field for their efforts, as much as their brothers do. They suffer from too rigid a restraint to absolute stagnation, precisely as men would suffer. And it's narrow minded in their more privileged fellow creatures to say that they, as in women, ought to confine themselves to making puddings and knitting stockings, to playing on the piano and embroidering bags. It's thoughtless to condemn them, to laugh at them, if they seek to do more or learn more than custom has pronounced necessary for their sex. So that's Jane's brief commentary on the unfair restraint forced on women. So I just thought that was brilliant because it seems like Charlotte Bronte was definitely ahead of her time. And I wouldn't call Jane Eyre a feminist book, but it's definitely, there are little bits in there that just show how ahead of her time both Jane and Charlotte was. And that even back then in the 1800s there were women who felt like they wanted more than the life they were supposed to live, than the life they were told they had to live by society. Okay, so this one is actually from Mr. Rochester. I mean, it's from Jane Eyre, but the one saying it was Mr. Rochester, and he said about Jane, I see at intervals the glance of a curious sort of bird through the close-set bars of a cage. A vivid, restless, resolute captive is there. Were it but free, it would soar cloud high. From that quote, I just feel like Mr. Rochester understood Jane Eyre from the very beginning. He knew that Jane wanted more in her life than what she had. She wanted excitement, she wanted adventure, and she had a lot of opinions that she never had the opportunity to voice because of how she was raised and how rigid she was sort of molded to be. And in this instant, from this quote from what Mr. Rochester said, I felt like he understood Jane as a person. He understood her essence as a human being. So, yeah, I love that quote. Oh, this one. I can live alone if self-respect and circumstances require me so to do. I need not sell my soul to buy bliss. I have an inward treasure born with me, which can keep me alive if all extraneous delights should be withheld, or offered only at a price I cannot afford to give. Again, this just emphasizes how independent and what's the word? I can't come up with the word to describe Jane, but she has principles that she never lets go of. She doesn't compromise with her values. She really holds on to her beliefs, her faith, and what she thinks is right. So that makes me really respect Jane as a character, even when she had, her shortcomings. But if there's one thing about Jane, she's gonna hold on to her principles. Another thing she said, another bar, conventionality is not morality. Self-righteousness is not religion. To attack the first is not to assail the last. Need I say more? Oh, a super romantic quote that I love from this book. Again, Mr. Rochester said it. He said, this was after his room caught on fire, and then Jane came to save him. So he approached her and said, I knew you would do me good in some way, at some time. I saw it in your eyes when I first beheld you. Their expression and smile did not strike delight to my very inmost heart for nothing. I have nothing to say to that. It's so romantic. Ooh, another bar from Mr. Rochester. I love his lines in the book. Okay, he said, I could bend you with my finger and my thumb, a mere reed you feel in my hands. But whatever I do with this cage, I cannot get at you, and it is your soul that I want. Guys. If you get it, you get it. Okay, another bar by Mr. Rochester. I have a strange feeling with regard to you, as if I had a string somewhere under my left ribs, tightly knotted to a similar string in you. And if you were to leave, I'm afraid that cord of communion would snap. And I have a notion that I take the bleeding inwardly. As for you, you'd forget me. And then after this, Jane basically had a breakdown, and she was like, how could I forget you? And the whole iconic scene where she was like, what did she say? She said, like, do you think I'm an automaton? Even though I'm poor, I'm obscure, plain and little, I have as much heart as you. Yeah, after Mr. Rochester said all that, Jane kind of like, she broke down. Okay, the final quote that I really love from Jane Eyre is, I couldn't help it. The restlessness was in my nature. It agitated me to pain sometimes. Another proof that Jane wanted more in her life. She was always seeking more. She had ambition. She had dreams. She had this desire to just push out of the box that she was forced into. Not just as she was poor, I guess, so she didn't have much choice in her life, but to work, and she was a governess, so she basically was stuck at Mr. Rochester's house all the time. So there was that, but there was also the box that society forced her into as a woman. Like, I think that women back then were so restrained. They always had to look a certain way, talk a certain way. They couldn't do certain things that men could do. So I think that was what she meant as well by this quote. So yeah, I love Jane Eyre. Those are some of my favorite quotes from this book. And if you have a favorite quote from Jane Eyre, why don't you share it in the comment section?